My oldest is off to a warmer state for her swim training camp, and my middle child is in the woods somewhere with his buddy, and my girls went off to the snow with a couple of their friends. My husband is working, my dog is sleeping here, and I am folding clothes. It's that little in-between time between Christmas and New Year's where it's sort of an empty space, a time where some people go back to work and others have a little more of an extended vacation, and a time where we do a lot of reflecting on what the year was and what we anticipate perhaps for the new year. I've been doing my own sort of reflecting. In fact, it was really kind of weird because this morning, out of nowhere, and maybe it was because the house was quiet and empty and there was this anticipation of me having my own little time to myself, that I just got really teary. And I don't know what triggered it, I'm not clear. I mean, literally I went into the bathroom and I looked at the shower and I thought, oh, I need to clean this. And then all of a sudden I just started to cry, and I'm thinking, okay, that was weird. And as I felt what was underneath that, there was, a whole range of emotions. And one thing I remember, sometimes people have said you cannot have more than one feeling at once. You can either love or hate, but both can't exist at the same time. And I don't believe that. I literally felt all kinds of emotions in this little tiny moment, this morning. And I often feel lots of emotions when something comes up in me. There was sadness that my daughter had left, that we only got a little short time with her. There was the sweetness of being in an empty house. There was the overwhelm of, I gotta clean my shower. And there was I would say, uncertainty of what's to come for 2016. And I don't mean uncertainty in a negative way, but there is a little bit of wondering that doesn't always feel secure, right? What's really coming up for me on a work basis in terms of this show and summarizing this show, as I was looking at it, I really got a sense that it is time to move into something bigger, something more. And what I mean by that is we are at the close of the season pilot, and so I won't be in this experimental phase, so-called, anymore. Interestingly enough, the whole show is an experimental phase. I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. But what was coming to me was this sense of it is time to take action, hence the word revolution. So not only do I want us collectively to embrace our whole soul and all of our gifts and our amazing selves, but the idea of the revolution is to take action, to make a shift, to do something with it. So what kept coming to me as we were, coming to a close of this season pilot is it's time for that revolution part of it, which is to create a movement, an action that says, yes, we are reclaiming our power and we are reclaiming this world and its denser vibration and shifting it into a world in which we want to experience life at a higher frequency. What does that mean exactly? Well, that's a good question, because I don't really believe I have the answers. I believe I get pictures, I get information, I get insights, but I also don't believe that I can solely take on a revolution. This isn't my own responsibility. It is a collective movement, right? And that we together need to move forward into the next phase. What I really see for 2016 is that it is going to be a really huge dynamic year. And what I mean by that is that things are going to push us to our limit in terms of there's no more places to hide. And what I mean by that is that so many of us wish to remain closet mystics. we are so excited that, oh, Veronica mentioned, that being a mystic is as simple as, XYZ, or she's giving us a new perspective. And isn't that nice? Because perhaps I'm a mystic. Oh, I'm a healer. Oh, I'm an intuitive. Oh, I have these gifts. Isn't that exciting? Well, the reality is it's time to come out of the closet. We can't just secretly, connect amongst each other and say, oh, I'm watching this show in secret, or I'm, listening to my, Esther Hicks tapes, or I'm reading, Louise Hay books, and I'm, paying attention inwardly, but I'm not going to share who I am or do my work or be who I am publicly because I might be persecuted, right? Anyone who's ever taken on a revolution has risked a lot, whether it's their lives, whether it's persecution, whether it's, being jailed, whether it's, coming up against the structure that kept us down or kept the things in place. That's sort of the point, is to say enough is enough. We want to shift. Now, what I believe is that we haven't come here for our individual pleasures and joys. I have seen very few people in my years, 10 years of doing this work, specifically working with those who are awakening. They didn't come in here to just go along and do their own little readings and keep things small. We really did come in to shift things in a very big way, and we can't do that in secret and behind the veil. We can't. We have to come out. We have to make an outer exclamation of who we are and say, I'm here to shake things up. Now, you don't have to do anything. You can choose to stay in the closet and hope your life will go the way it, wants to go. And what I will say is that if you've made a commitment on a soul level to come in to change things, you are going to be accountable for that in some way. Your soul won't let you off the hook. So that's what I mean about the energy of 2016. So you may continue to try to keep manifesting your own car, your own abundance, your own beloved, fixing your health, and do all this stuff for your own personal pleasures and experience of life, which you absolutely have a prerogative to enjoy. But if you made that commitment as a soul that you were going to come in to change things, this is going to be the year that will push up against all of your resistances. How does this work into the greater picture? Well, for one thing, once we get tired of things being so difficult personally and all of our stuff keeps coming up to the surface, it'll force us in some respect to make changes. And those changes are going to be scary, and they are going to be a little bit daring, and they will feel in some respects like we're doing this all alone, but we're not. And that's again what I mean by saying a whole soul revolution. So we can individually claim our whole soul, but we need the whole collective for this revolution. So I invite you to not just own who you are, to not just step into your truth, to your power, to your joy, right? And I will continue to give you tips along those lines, absolutely, because it's part of the process. But I so invite you to step into it in a bigger way with the collective, with a group consciousness of saying, yes, I really did come in here to this planet to change things up. And it's going to begin by me taking responsibility for who I am, for claiming my gifts, and for somehow bringing those forth to the world. So earlier this year, my husband and I were discussing this idea of courage and strength. And as we started getting deeper into the topic, and I was sharing my perspective about, his direction and what he was moving through, I kept emphasizing this point of courage. And what he finally realized was that he had strength, right? That he had strength because he kept persevering, and he was willing to work, and he was willing to put one foot in front of the other. But he didn't necessarily have the courage to move in a direction toward the joy he really wants on a soul level. And what I have found is that courage is often confused with strength. We believe that if we keep persevering and pushing and working hard and doing what we're supposed to do, whatever that might mean, that we will eventually get to the there place. But where is that there place? Oftentimes that there place is slightly happier than where we were, but it's still within the confines of a structure that we didn't want to be in the first place, right? What courage offers us is an opportunity to say, let's try this path. Let's experience this unknown area. So when I was talking the other day about, this anticipation of what's to come in 2016, and not really seeing it as anything bad, but just that unknown. When we face an unknown, there is often that discomfort that arises. And the question is, what do we meet that discomfort with? Do we meet it with going back to how things were and just plugging along and working really hard? Or do we allow courage to hold that and help it blossom? My intention is to demonstrate how I am facing my own fears so that I can offer courage to you through an example. So in regards of this whole soul revolution, yes, I've had lots of practice being a mystic. I've been practicing basically my whole life, right? I was raised in this environment and it was no big deal to be strange, except for when it did become a big deal because I was a teen and I was a little bit afraid of what people might think of me. But then coming back around to working as an intuitive and as a spiritual mentor for the past 10 years, it's like, okay, so what? This is what I do. But when I was planning to start this show, one of the things I was told was this was going to brush up against everything that was my stuff. It was going to bring everything to the surface. Now, I had mentioned also that my husband and I had a really, really hard 6 years where we separated. It was a really painful time in our lives. Both, rang through the ringer. And when I got that information that the show doing this was going to just bring up all this stuff in me, I thought, well, I've already been through a lot. What's the big deal? But trying to start this show, I could feel all that fear coming up. I could feel all the resistance. I could feel all the unworthiness. I'm not at the other end just because I've started the show. I'm at the beginning because I've started the show. So in my experiences, I will come across things that come up in me that will go, oh my God, I can't do this, right? And I will do my best to be as honest and vulnerable and open with you to show you what it's like to find that courage. And in all respect, that I'm doing this in a public way, that in and of itself can give me courage. So what I see is this revolution can be begun with me sitting in this little tiny room talking to a video camera and you at home going, okay, I think I'm getting this, and us together mustering up courage. And then there's another person and another person and another person all coming together virtually at first, mustering up courage to do something different, right? So going back to that Buckminster Fuller quote, which was, we don't change the reality by fighting the reality. We change the reality by creating an entirely new one, making the old one obsolete. And that's what I'm wanting to do by creating an example of how I'm finding courage, moving through my life, and creating a revolution that is creating momentum, creating inspiration, mustering up courage within us. If you could go into a quiet place, maybe it's just before you go to bed and you lay down and, imagine, a full relaxation taking over your body. And then ask yourself, what do I need in order to begin my own and to be part of this collective whole soul revolution? What do I need? And just listen, feel, pay attention to whatever comes. For me, the information comes oftentimes in sounds and in sentences. Other times there's just a knowing. Sometimes I'll have a physical sensation of something. So just pay attention to the subtleties, to whatever ways it may come to you. And if you capture that, you could even write it down. What do I need? What do I need? Right? Here's what I need. And if courage is one of them, then just have an awareness that it doesn't always just magically appear, but it's something that is generated. And I am doing my part, and I'll make that commitment to you, to help you muster that courage through my own actions. So the question that I'll leave you with is, do you have the courage to come out of the closet, to start to show who you are to a small group of people perhaps, and to take on your own form, your own part in this collective revolution?